Hey guys, welcome to Baka Burrito. I'm Devin,
Diego.
And I'm Max.
and on today's episode of Burrito Banter, we have what makes a great shonen. So, what we're going to be talking about today are the ingredients that make an excellent shonen anime. And for those of you who don't know, a shonen anime is classified as a genre of anime which is geared towards teenage boys, typically between the ages of 12 and 19, that usually have an action-packed plot. Those would include things like Naruto, Dragon Ball, One Piece, Fairy Tail, and My Hero Academia.
And just for a little bit more clarity, it doesn't have to be specifically because when people think shonen, they think instantly battle shonen. But things like Death Note, Attack on Titan, they're also shonen. There's one about cooking.
Shokugeki no Soma.
Shokugeki
10 out of 10.
no Soma.
Technically in the sports anime
that's
category.
still shonen. So it doesn't specifically have to have battle, but just typically it has action like that.
Exactly.
And even if it doesn't have battles, those mangas still have action.
Yeah, they have
some
battles
capacity.
in their way. It's also
Yeah.
like a lot of the sports anime you'll find Max talking about in Sports for Weebs Part 1 and 2. Go check those out. So a lot of the sports anime that Max will be talking about in that series as it goes on are considered shonen. There are a few that aren't, but there is a difference between shonen and seinen. I feel like we should get that out of the way real quick. There are things like Berserk and Code Geass that are seinen, which are geared towards older Vinland Saga that are geared towards yeah, exactly. Those are geared towards older, like adults, and they have darker themes typically. That doesn't stop shonen from having darker themes. It's just more likely in the seinen category. So I just want to go ahead and say that our list and what we look for in shonen is very obviously going to be subjective. Even between the three of us, we don't all look for the same thing when we're watching a show. Max is very much a things go boom kind of guy.
Hey, and things go whoosh, okay?
That I look for tragically underrated characters who are overpowered in power scaling, and then you have Diego who looks for something that can stimulate his brain, like 25-8.
Yeah, honestly, what I look for, all right, I guess I'll just start it off, right?
Go ahead. Yep.
Okay, so usually what I look for in shonen is almost exactly what I look for in absolutely every other form of medium, maybe besides like music. And that is, I look for an experience because I spent so much of my time watching a show that's kind of mediocre, watching a show that's kind of, and it's just like, why am I even watching this? It's all right, it's okay. And it's not bad, but it might just be okay. So when I'm looking for a shonen, I'm looking for something that can give me more, something that I've never seen before, something that I can and obviously it can have elements that are in everything, I'm not saying, oh, I want only unique stuff,
Yeah.
But just something that it almost feels like an artist trying to tell me something instead of just another show among the millions of shows on my streaming platform. So
and then I guess we could go over to Max, and Max could actually tell them what he looks for in a show as well. And then I'll go last, and then we can you can lead us into the next thing.
Yeah, we can get into specifics.
And what's the best way than to go the complete opposite of what Diego looks for in a shonen? As we said before, I like the big explosions, action, like I'm going to defeat you after you killed my father kind of deal. And really for me, like I have 3 different categories of different types of shonen I like to watch. There's the ones where I used to turn off my brain and be like, oh yeah, let's go. Let's just start punching shit. Like this is gonna work out great. Then I have my sports anime ones, which are all still in the category of shonen, like Makunochi no Ippo and Kuroko no Basketball, that get me hyped and actually want me to go play those sports. And I go into that also in Sports for Weebs Part 1 and 2. Go check it out. And then there's like my third category, which is actually stuff that gets me really invested in characters and really like on the edge of my seat in action. And like these would be more like, I know they're like it's technically in the sending category, but like stuff like Vinland Saga and why am I drawing a blank? Fairy Tale is another one that actually I get invested in the characters and get on the edge of my seats.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
I have no, wait, hold on, because I have to, because everyone's gonna hear that. Wait, hold on. You said Vinland Saga and then Fairy Tale right after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's talking about how invested he personally gets into characters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it threw me off for a second too. I had to turn my brain back on.
But look, essentially, I have a very diverse palette when it comes to shonen. I'll watch pretty much anything. Like I am not
Max
a
will
fine
watch
taster.
Max will watch literally everything. A couple of years back, he watched everything during the winter season, and I think it was like 2017, and he was like, "There's nothing good." I was like, "Why are you still watching it?"
You see,
Because I had to watch it. I had to.
I'm literally the complete opposite because I went through a phase where I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna just watch everything." I went through a phase where I was like on an anime website and I would just scroll and then stop, and whatever I stopped on, I'd have to watch.
Oh, what a
And then
coincidence! I still do the same thing. I started that phase in high school, and it's never stopped.
you see, and then that's what made me change because there was a point where I was like, I don't like any of the shows I'm landing on, and I gotta spend my time with shows that like pump me up like no other show can. So
Fair.
You see, my other problem is the opposite problem. I'm running out of things to watch, and then Devin recommends something, I don't watch it for 3 weeks.
Yeah, he refuses to watch the things I recommend, but he likes all of the things I recommend except one, except literally one, and it was a manga because the art style didn't suit his palette. That was
was
it.
it a shonen?
Yeah, and then Devin responded,
No,
wait,
no,
No.
slice of
Devin,
life.
Devin told me, hold up, you have a palette? And I'm like, apparently I do.
And I guess all
Yeah,
that leaves is me, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So typically, what I'm looking for in shonen are like the overdog in power scale, but the underdog in
Life.
character. Like, so you have to think about it in the sense like Gilgamesh from Fate, Sinbad from Magi. They're people don't take a second to look at like their psychology and like who they are as a character. I'm looking for that character that's like super powerful, but being powerful isn't all they are. You know, like they have a motive. So for example, some of my favorite characters are like Pain from Naruto, Madara. You got Gilgamesh, like I just said, Sinbad. Like so things like that. Like, and if we're talking like what specific, like I want a believable antagonist who can push the plot so far beyond what it should be. I like the secondary cast much more than I typically like main characters. I like when stuff like that is rounded out. So I like a fleshed out cast. I like overpowered characters who have good psychology. But if being strong is their only character trait, I hate those characters. So there is a fine line for me. So I am looking for a lot of character work, and that might be because I'm an actor and I'm always looking for like interesting characters. But like even if it's like a weak character physically, but they are strong like mentally, like they're like the smartest person in their show, that's really interesting to me because there's a dynamic there. I don't want someone who's like, I could solve every problem with my brain, I could solve every problem with my fist, so I'm just gonna solve every problem. So yeah. I also happen to like card game anime, regardless of what they are. I'm a little bit like Max, only when it comes to card game shows, because I love card games in general. And when I have a game that I can play and watch a show,
That's actually interesting. So it's like Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Digimon. Yep. Those are shonen, right?
Yep.
All right. So you typically look for card games too?
Yes, yes. Well, I'm not like I'll only watch a card game anime, but if it has like a card game tied to it in some kind of way,
you're more interested in the game
exactly
than the actual anime.
Exactly.
But you'll watch the anime
yes.
for the game. Okay.
Correct. Okay. Yes. All right, and I guess what I said leads us into our first point. So we're all going to go ahead and talk about what we look for in characters specifically, and we will have examples, like more specific examples for shows. So Diego, if you could go ahead and lead us in.
Okay. All right. So for shonen, there's actually not a lot of shonen I like, but the shonens that I do like, I love. So I guess I could start. What do I look for in characters? Should I start with just main characters or just characters
Yeah.
in
So
general?
I guess you could talk about whether you prefer main characters, secondary characters, or what you look for in a main character.
Okay, well, I guess for a shonen, I feel like a main character. I mean, I know you disagree with this because we just talked about this.
Yeah.
But for shonen, I actually believe that it's, at least for me personally, it's very important that I like the main character because that's where most of the screen time goes to.
Uh-huh.
And I don't want to watch something that, for a character that I don't care about. So it's very important for me to care, at least care about the main character.
That's valid.
So,
Okay.
like, what would I look for in a main character? I don't look for anything specific, but just things that make it seem like the character's more than what they're giving on. I like a very realistic take on anime, so on characters in general. So like I don't want just a character that just blurts out all their the monologues and everything they believe, and they can do that eventually, but that's, I feel like that's not as realistic. It's better to get
So
what they believe from dialogue, their interactions, their actions, just their actions. Just with actions you can. Okay, so my favorite character.
one second. I have a question before you get to that.
Yeah, get on right. Yeah.
So did you not like Part 1 Naruto?
Oh no, I love Part 1 Naruto.
It's funny you say that, right? Because he's like because I know a character you have very much disliked in the past, and he's like slowly growing on you, is Bakugo from My
Yeah.
Hero. And Bakugo is heavily based on Part 1 Naruto, like his attitude and everything, right? But he has certain qualities that are turned up more. And you just said you dislike when a character like blurts out what they believe rather than like acting on it.
Yeah, I mean, they can do that. Like, there's situations that call for it.
Yeah.
There's definitely situations that would call for it, like if a villain's like telling him something or something. But I feel like it's more realistic. Like, like people don't go around just blurting their ideologies and their things and what they believe in
Unless they're
out of nowhere.
religious.
It comes from dialogue and action. So, that's what I look for. And I guess a good example to tell you what I'm talking about is Luffy from One Piece. He is my favorite character just in general,
Okay.
just overall in any anime, manga, whatever. He's my favorite character, and it's because he seems so simple at
Like
first
on the
look. You look at
surface, yeah.
him and you're like, oh, he's just like Goku, he's just like Naruto, he's just like every other character. But the one thing that I love about him is that he is a man of action. So just because he's not saying anything doesn't mean he's not thinking. You can tell his ideologies through what he does. So like, for example, when Nami's sister wants to tell Nami's backstory to Luffy, Luffy just leaves. He's like, I'm not interested. And he doesn't go on a big monologue as to why he's not interested. You yourself have to look into that. And it's because he doesn't care. He doesn't care what Nami's been through, because he's gonna be there for her regardless of what she's been through.
Yeah.
So that's why. And it's things like subtle things like that where it's dropped out throughout the entire series, where it's like, wow, I really like this character now.
So it's that actually reminds me of when Gon from Hunter x Hunter turns off the recording when he's about to find out who his mother is.
Yes, exactly.
And it's because he doesn't care who his mother is, because his aunt is right. It's his aunt.
Yeah. Although in that case, Gon says why he did that.
Yes, but
Luffy wouldn't have said that.
Fair,
He would have
okay.
just done it, and then you'd have to,
Yeah.
do your own type of thing. And that wasn't. I'm not to say that wasn't a bad scene, because I love Hunter x Hunter or anything like that. But it's just, I'm more interested in those type of characters. I'm doing this. I'm not gonna tell you. I'm just gonna do it.
So you like Deku and Luffy and Gon for the most part is I'm a do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So you like those kind of characters, like the ones that are just
for main characters. I mean, here's the thing. You did say I like Deku. I don't really like Deku, and that's only for the reason that I feel like he's a lot like the main character from Hitman Reborn in
Yes.
a way,
Okay. Yeah.
but I where he's like I don't want to say he's crying all the time, but it's like the mood around him is a mood of that I was
Levity.
just yeah, it's like why not like you don't have to be that way, you know what I'm saying? You don't have to be crying, you don't have to be in tears. You can try to do it. You can try to do things without that way. And
Okay.
but one thing I do like about Deku over Hitman Reborn is that he has a dream and he's taking actions to follow that dream. And I
Okay.
love driven characters. So I'm not saying, I don't hate Deku, I don't love him, but I think he's a pretty good character. And there's obviously things I'm gonna dislike about him.
So in if you had to summarize it, you would say that you're looking for a driven character who is about action.
Oh yes, exactly. Like even like Yagami is a good example of a
Perfect.
driven character. You know,
Yeah.
he's driven for his goal. He's doing all this for his goal. And it's like I just love it.
Fair.
That's what I need.
Perfect. Okay. So Max, what are you looking for in a main character?
Well, there's two different types of main characters that I really do love. And the first one is really the ones that overcome the odds. Like they start out kind of weak or don't have the talent for something, have to work hard in order to build. I'm talking about like the Astas from Black Clover, the Samuras from Diamond No Aces.
Okay.
Those kind of characters that have to they're definitely the bottom of the food chain. They have to prove something to people. And I think that stems from like me being able to relate to them a little more, and which is why I do love sports animes, because I was in the same boat, having to prove myself to teammates and actually overcoming odds. And there's just something so satisfying to me about seeing like those types of characters, like proving those people who said you can't do it wrong, and having that unwavering will to push forward through any adversity. And it's like one of those things that I just connect with personally. That's why I love shonen so much. And the other type of character that I really do like is the one that feels human to me. Like it feels like it's an actual person, and that is spawned in my favorite anime of all time, Gintama, with Sakura Gintaki, the main character there, because throughout the series, it's a shonen that shows itself as a comedy anime, but it's so much deeper than that. There's so much complexity to every character, so much struggle and heartbreak.
Stay specifically to the main character.
Yeah, well, that is specifically the main character, because, like, I guess a little bit of a spoiler warning if you haven't watched the anime. Where have you been? And if you like, in all honesty, it's been around forever. But Gintoki is a character who has gone through a civil war against aliens invading his homeland. His sensei dying from him, that was a father figure, his friends being split up because he failed to protect those he cared about, and is essentially, you don't see in the beginning, but he's essentially a broken man in the beginning and tries to find humor in life as a safety mechanism. And it's really amazing to see, like, as the seasons go on, you see him gain that sense of humanity he lost from the wars, like with the new set of characters that he gets introduced to. It's one of those things, though, because as the series goes on, they really do touch into, like, the main character's backstory, and they keep it such a mystery. They give you enough to give you an idea of what happened, but they never give so much that you have the full picture, and you have to fill in the holes with your own thoughts and ideas, which is what makes the anime so well, because it's as complex as trying to get to know an actual human being. And it's one of the reasons I've fallen in love with the anime, and I rewatch it at least once a year, because to me it's like a best friend, hanging out with a best friend.
So what you're looking for is a main character that you believe in to the point where they feel like they're a part of your life.
Exactly.
Absolutely valid. I mean,
So you can give us.
yeah, I feel like.
Yours,
and you also like characters who overcome the odds.
Oh yeah, because like basic sports junkie here. Like, come on, that's the story of every sports person in general.
So
except for the gifted people, screw them. I'm looking at you, Devin.
It happens. So
love you.
What I'm gonna say is it's actually kind of a mix of all of your points, because I do like. Well, the characters, the main characters I tend to like are kind of a combination of everything you guys said. I do really like, well, except for like I have to overcome the odds. Like if it's believable, I like them. If not, I don't care.
No, wait, hold on. You don't like it if they overcome
No,
the
no,
odds
no.
that are unbelievable.
It doesn't do anything for me. Like
Oh, okay.
if it's an underdog character, it does nothing for me. Because again, like I said before, I'm typically not the type who likes main characters. I typically I find my niche in like secondary characters, and things like that, and more
Which I
well.
would like to talk after we get
Absolutely,
to
absolutely.
main characters
And my thing specifically about main characters,
in shonen.
in shonen, yes, in main characters in shonen, specifically the ones I tend to really like, would have to be like for a main character. I really like Naruto, but I don't really like Naruto as a character. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like
Like,
you like the fact that he gets the screen time he
yep,
needs and that he can move the plot forward,
absolutely.
but he's just not your favorite character.
Correct. He wouldn't even break top 10. I respect him as a character. I respect him as like strong in his verse. I respect his goal, and I can watch it because of that. But as long as I don't hate a main character, I can watch the show. A main character I hate, and I had to force myself to watch a show, is Saitama. He's so boring to me. There's nothing there. And I get it, he's a parody, but that doesn't do anything for me. I had to force myself to watch a show because Max asked me to.
And just an interesting detail, Saitama is actually seinen. But it works as a shonen, so
Yeah.
it's like, so you could use that.
So a character I really like as a shonen protagonist is Sinbad from Adventures of Sinbad specifically. And I saw that show before I saw the rest of Magi and read the rest of Magi. So I also am aware of the fact that he's also an antagonist in Magi, like the regular story, but he is a protagonist. And he just has a charisma, a drive, and his goal is so admirable. Like, he wants to form a country where it's a peaceful country. Like, that is his goal, and he's a poor kid from nothing. And that makes sense to me, but at no point is he an underdog in anything but social standing. Because he's just poor. But he's capable, he's smart, he has a natural sense of being a navigator on the open sea. He has aptitude to control multiple jin, and even though exactly, and the way even though all this stuff sounds like it's like, oh, he just sounds like a walking ass pull, it's not, because it's established that everybody in this verse has something called the Rook, and everyone has a different level of it. The day he's born is the day the Rook went crazy, and
so it's almost natural.
Exactly.
Obviously, he's going to be this great because
they refer to him as not the Enigma, but they call him like a paradigm or something along those lines. Like, he is special. Like, he's born and he's a force of nature, essentially. But
good for him.
Yeah, exactly. So a character like that.
Work for that, says Max.
But he did have to work for it because he captured 7 dungeons. Even being that strong, dungeons aren't easy. And there are other people who capture multiple dungeons. Like, there's a guy who has 3. No one else has 7, of course. But again, he's a character who's strong and he can go, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. So the fact that he's driven, has a goal, and he's emotionally believable, it's like, this is the type of character I'm looking for. Like, I want all of the range.
Can you give us another example of a main character you like that's shonen? Just so I can wrap my head around what you're exactly looking for.
Well, yeah. Again, like I said, I do like Deku. And again, I don't consider Deku an underdog because he gets given the most OP power in the show. His journey is controlling his power, and I like that. It's working to control his already colossal power. Another thing I like about Deku, I don't love, again, he wouldn't even make my top 10 characters in the show. Let me clarify. But I do like him as the protagonist for My Hero. I'm
almost the same as that Jay on my thoughts on that.
I like that he's the main character, and I love the fact that he's emotionally believable. He's very reminiscent of someone the 3 of us know who was bullied and then try to really come into their own. I'm not going to name drop, but he'll know who he is. And like again, he was bullied when he was younger, and like he really grew into his own, and like now he has all this potential that like he's still afraid to tap into, and like he gets more and more confident in himself as it goes on. And I really like that as for his character, but I like
And for a
another
main character.
exactly for a main character. But like again, like I said, I just called Sinbad super OP, but I already said I dislike Saitama, who's super OP, but he's not emotionally believable. You know, so like there is a line, like there are levels to it. They don't have to be completely OP. They don't have to be completely underrated. Um, the main character of Konosuba, I think he's like he's underpowered,
Oh
and
my
I think
god.
he's a great main character because he's emotionally believable and he's funny. And then you have the main matter of fact, the main character of Prince of Tennis, he's OP to all hell.
X-Gen.
Yeah, he's OP as hell, and I really like him for that show because he has emotional depth. Um, Yugi
So
and the
much
Pharaoh.
emotional depth.
Yugi and the Pharaoh are OP. Well, the Pharaoh more so. But the Pharaoh is OP. He picks up any card game, any game he plays the first time he plays it, and he masters it. And that's another character I like because he has the emotional believability. So again, it really depends on how believable this character is versus how interesting the rest of their character is as well.
Okay, okay.
All right, and I guess with that we can move on to side characters. And I'll go first just because I'm
Yeah.
already. Um, I am a big proponent in the secondary cast, the antagonists, the villains, mostly the villains. If you don't have a good villain, I think your story is trash. And a good villain isn't always someone who's super in depth. Sometimes a story needs a cartoon villain. Like, and what I mean by cartoon villain is someone
Like
who's just
Ozai
someone who's
from
evil for
Avatar.
the sake of being evil. Whereas I love every villain in Legend. I know they're not anime, but every villain in Legend of Korra, I love for their mental, like what they do for my brain and what they do for the stakes. Versus Ozai, who I also love for the sake that he's just evil for the sake of being evil. And then to bring that back to anime, Gilgamesh from Fate Stay Night and Fate Zero, he is excellent. His goal is just to have, like in Fate Zero specifically. His
Wait,
goal,
is the Fate series shonen?
it depends on which one.
Gray area.
Fate Zero is seinen, and Fate Stay Night is
Oh,
shonen.
interesting. Okay.
Also,
I don't know.
Fate Heaven's Feel is seinen as well. Because I mean, they are adapted from hentai, so like I get it. They started as, they started as a hentai game. Anyway,
Humble origins, though, right?
facts. People literally read it for the plot.
That's the first I've heard somebody say that ever.
And so Gilgamesh is so powerful, and he drives the plot because he's also like a jester type character where he's detached and he's not affected because his whole philosophy is, I'm the king of everything. This grail is already mine and nobody here can beat me. And then he proves himself right. Like, something about a shonen that's not afraid to let the villain win does it for me. I really like a lot of the secondary cast from Fairy Tail because they're all so interesting, and most of them are like tropes, character tropes and archetypes, but they develop as well. I think I've said this before in one of our videos. But yeah, so I'm looking for a very diverse cast that I could get behind. For example, one of my favorite characters in Naruto is Tamari. She is hands down the most useful female character that's in the whole show. She's like almost every time we see her on screen, she's doing something productive instead of getting saved by someone else. And I really love that. And she's a strong character. And they develop her relationship in a believable way. Her and Shikamaru meet when they're like 12, and then they develop to the time they're adults and they have a kid together. I like that. That's something that's also not that explored in shonen that we'll talk about a little later. But Max, now it's your turn. What do you look for in secondary cast?
Well, once again, it goes into two things for me. Like, it's always two things. I have two different personalities when I watch shonen to begin with. And the first thing is like having that good rival character, that character that pushes the main character to get better. It's usually because
Bakugo.
pretty essentially, it's like the same idea, like how you have those sports rivalries in all the sports anime. Like you have the guy who is not that good at the sport, and you have like this way better rival who, for some reason, this would not happen in real life, mind you, would recognize the guy with no talent to be his rival. That doesn't happen right away. Like rarely. Once in a blue moon, it does. But
It's funny you say that though, because there are a lot of rivals. Sorry, just a little quick insert. There are a lot of rivals who never actually recognize the main character as their rival until after they get beat.
Exactly,
and that's like a majority of the rivals. They just get written in as the rival. I think that's an important distinction.
Yeah, and then eventually they do actually become a rival when the main character gets strong enough to, as you say, beat the rival, and then they're like, we have a real rivalry now. It's not one-sided anymore.
Yeah.
And then the other way I really like secondary characters is just, it's the same way how I like my main characters in Gintama. Like, the emotional depth and development that's put into the secondary characters brings such a wider view to the world in of itself, because it's one thing to really flesh out your main character, but to take the time to develop a lot of secondary and characters and villains really just makes the world feel more vast and more intricate and more complex, because all these other characters have motivations also, and it just doesn't feel like the main character is, the only character that matters at that point. Because, for example, in Fairy Tail, you got Gray, who has his own motivations throughout. Like in season 1, he has his own motivations to want to fight a giant ice demon. That's a whole other issue. You got Erza, who has a whole lot of baggage.
Yeah.
Oh man, the baggage. You got Makarov, who has his own issues and backstory. His grandson, who got some daddy issues there, but they work it out later in the tournament arc. They work it out with their fists. But that's what I really like though, because it makes me feel like there's more to the world than just one point of view. Like I feel like I can watch these characters have their own set of stories and still be invested in them. And to me, it's like the real world. Like I have my own life, you both have your own lives also, and it just makes it way more fun, in my opinion.
That's valid. Diego?
Okay, well, I guess for side characters, what I look for in a shonen, specifically when it comes to side characters, is...
Oh, this also includes antagonists as well. Like you talk about all of that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll talk about all that. So, I guess it would have to be that they have to give me some sort of depth that the main character can't give me. So, so like for example, I'm not even gonna give examples. I'm gonna just keep saying. But what I mean is, if you if a main character is good at doing one thing, but he's really bad at a bunch of other stuff, it gives the side characters more meaning. So they're not just waiting for the protagonist. They're not just waiting to, they're active. They're active in their own they're active in their own series. So I guess in One Piece, the Straw Hats. In One Piece, the Straw Hats, they might be waiting for Luffy to defeat the final villain, but on the way to that, they're all doing what they can do best to get Luffy to that position. So it almost feels like they're just constantly active, and it never feels like they're left in the dust by the main character. They're on a journey with the main character.
So it sounds kind of like you kind of like the setup where they're going up a tower and then they get to a floor and it's like, you guys go on ahead. Yes. I'll take care of this guy.
Tower of God is such a great way to explain it, because just like how oh my god, I can't believe I'm forgetting these characters' names.
I put them on.
But just like how Bang is Bomb is Bomb. Yeah. All right, just like how Bomb is really really bad at almost everything, but he has the one thing, which is the innocence, which that was such an interesting concept. The fact that his innocence is his strength, and he has his team of people that do what he can't do, and it works so well because it's not just the main character, it's a team, and now you can like every other team. Now you're I don't want to say you're forced, but you almost don't have a reason not to like the other. I don't want to say that because that almost sounds like
No, but
too
it gives everyone a
too
purpose, I think.
absolute. Yes, but
Yeah, go ahead.
it makes it so the side characters are always gonna be more likable. Not more likable than the main character, but just more likable in general. They're gonna be more likable than, characters that don't do anything or constantly get things wrong.
No, I agree because I think it's very important to have like that dynamic. Like I think me and Max me and him have watched a lot of anime together, just straight
Oh
up.
man.
But
Yeah.
it's very like we watched this one show and I forget what it was where the main character was just World Trigger, where the
Oh
main
yeah.
character is just super smart, right? And then he has the OP partner, right, who acts as like a deuteragonist, which is like a secondary protagonist. It's like the person who's slightly less important than the protagonist in the story.
So
And
like Sasuke in Naruto.
yeah, exactly. And so the main character, and I forget what his name is, the white haired kid.
I don't even remember. It's been a
Me,
while.
it's fine. And then they have the girl who's this super powerful sniper, and each of them.
No, sniper's a understatement, Devin.
Yeah. She punches holes in walls. It's
No,
amazing.
blows up buildings. Like,
Fair, okay.
She has a cannon, okay?
And so the thing about them is each of them has a very distinct role. Like one is up front fighting, one is doing the planning because he realizes he's weak, but like he tries his best to fight, and then the girl is just out here, boom, like like she's demolition. Like so, like they all have their role, and each role is so unique that none of the other ones can touch upon what they do, and it makes them all memorable in their own ways.
Yeah, exactly. And then I guess I could start talking about the villains. I feel like we should have almost our own section for villains because I want to hear what you guys think specifically about just villains in shonen.
They're the best characters. Period.
But for like villains, what I look for, I want to say
Okay.
believable motivations for what they're doing. Now, I do like some villains that are just villains for the sake of villains,
Mhm.
but but in that sense, I also like when the villain's plot makes so much sense as to why they want to do that, why they would want to do that in that type of world.
When you're like, this guy's probably right.
Spitting
Oh, I don't
facts.
even want to say probably right because it's not even a thing about justice and stuff. But oh my god, I hate having to bring up One Piece every time, but it's the one I know the most of that I could just call upon. But things like a character like Crocodile, like so his power is sand, so obviously he's gonna try to take over a kingdom of sand, and obviously, and when
Seems
he's
legit.
and when he gets defeated by Luffy and his plan is spoiled over and now everyone knows who he is. Obviously he's not going to go back because now he can't come up with the same plan, so he's not going to go back, so Luffy
Yeah.
doesn't need to kill him in that type of sense. So it's almost believable as to why he would do that, why his goal was that, and why he would, once his plan's foiled, he wouldn't just go back to doing that. He would obviously try to find another goal because it's a real person. If something fails, you're not gonna go ahead and do the same thing,
Yeah.
like Doofenshmirtz from from Thing. You know what I'm saying? He's not like, oh man, I got defeated. Let me go ahead and be evil again. Crocodile in Crocodile's mind, he's not evil. He has a goal, and these are the quickest ways to get to that goal.
And
Dr. Doofenberg is an intricate character with a complex past.
Yo, I'm not even gonna cap. That probably is true because his father-daughter relationship is.
He does his damnest there to be a good dad.
But when it comes to villainous, we can all admit that he's a
Yeah.
villain just for the sake of villainous.
absolutely, yes.
I don't even believe that. He saved Perry plenty of times.
That's the problem. That makes a bad villain.
Or maybe he's just a good villain.
Or
Like-
maybe he's just bad at being a good guy.
So I think because everyone has touched on villains at least to a small amount, we can go ahead because also this video is now getting a little bit long. We may actually have to call it at our next point.
All right, I guess I'll go first with the plot.
Yeah, for plot, what you look for in the plot. That can also be like power dynamics and such.
Well, the one thing I really like about most plots is when the power dynamic makes sense. I hate it when you just have a power dynamic for the sake of getting more powerful. And Dragon Ball Z has that problem where it's just they keep getting stronger for the sake of strength, and there's no other reason besides there's a new villain that's even stronger. And I'm like, where'd you come from? I like it when there's a power system grounded in reality.
To that point, I feel like even though it is true what Max is saying, there's almost, because it's a martial arts anime, it's almost forgivable that the plot is getting stronger for the sake of strength.
Yeah.
But
they pigeonhole themselves that they have to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's my
and on top of that, it's like not that great of a martial arts anime. All right, keep going.
But like to me, like you could have taken it a different road with like Shimamanda Kenshi, History's Strongest Disciple. I like that one because there's actually, you know, where the power ceiling is with the freaking elder who's over here like I don't want any of that. And like, you know where the strongest you can get is, and then after that, it's about learning different techniques and different fighting styles to overcome different opponents. I like that kind of power system in terms of plot. Another thing I do like about plot is
one just on your point before you move on. I feel like everyone should check out Shaman King. Read the manga; it's fantastic. But in Shaman King, they established something called spiritual power. Right, very common, but it's because everyone's like a spiritualist or a shaman, and they can summon a ghost that helps them fight, and each ghost has spiritual power. Okay, then you meet this one character who has a spiritual power of 1,000,000, and everybody realizes there's no way we can catch up to him. So the way you beat him isn't by overpowering him and beating him in a fight. So there are instances in this show where people who are weaker win fights by outsmarting their opponent, by using a technique in combination with someone else, by like using their power in a way that they never thought they would use it. And obviously, like, there's the occasional surpass your limits and just do this BS move. But the way they beat the final boss, they let him win. Like, they let him, like, spoiler. I didn't say.
Watch Shaman King. Now here's all the spoilers.
No, I didn't say what the goal was, but they let him win. And the thing about it is, it's believable because it's not like he just gives up on his plot. He just low-key agrees to some terms. Like, so they really negotiate a victory. And I think in a situation like that, it's like, this guy
Very
is
interesting for shonen.
Because in Shaman King, when you die and come back to life, your power gets a boost. But no amount of like, they start in like the hundreds, right? And like they end up in like the 10,000s. Like certain characters end up in like the 10,000s. But like I said, the main villain has 1,000,000, and there's no way they're coming up on 1,000,000 by dying and coming back to life repeatedly. Because they actually, like, it's like a Zenkai boost, but like they actually have to die.
As Naruto says, believe it.
And the thing about it is, at each time they die, it's harder for them to come back, so they can't keep doing it. So in a situation like that, I think that's really creative. And what Max was saying about power systems just getting out of pocket, I think that show handled it very well. But continue, Max. You were actually going to go on to real plot.
But actually, it made me think about one other thing about the power systems real quick. One other power system I do like is the JoJo Bizarre Adventures power system, because the introduction of stands.
I prefer Hamon.
I prefer Hamon overall, but I'm saying how they use the stands power system.
I would actually like to know why you guys prefer Hamon, but
I'm just basically shonen junkie, to be fair. That's a whole other video though to discuss.
Yeah, it's a whole other video.
I just like how every stand has its own unique ability and their creative ways of fighting, and it's all about type matchups. Like one stand could be strong against another stand, but if you fight another one where the matchup's bad, you're about to get destroyed. Anyway, the other thing I do like about a plot though is like having a set goal or set journey, and that's what it is. For Naruto, it's becoming Hokage. For Shogeki no Soma, it's overcoming his father and becoming a better chef than him and inheriting the diner. And for like most sports anime, go to nationals, which is always
win nationals.
Usually it's win. Usually it starts out as going to nationals, and then somebody says, "Why go when we can win it?" And
because they get bullied by the final opponent, and then they're like, "No, we're gonna win it."
Exactly. But I like that there's an end goal in the plot. It makes me feel like we're heading to something rather than just like aiming in some random direction.
Yeah, progression
And like
is
some
very.
animes don't do that as well. Like my issue was, for instance, in Bleach, there was the Soul Society arc, saving Rukia. That was the goal. But then I felt like afterwards, I sort of like there were goals, but I sort of started feeling like we were getting lost at some point. It was
That's
just like I felt
valid.
like these point. I felt like the next goal was just there because it's there.
Sorry about that. But I did have a point about what Max was saying, though. I will say there are certain anime that have an intangible goal, like finding the One Piece. That's an intangible concept, but they get focused goals in each arc, and I do like the way that's handled in One Piece, because it never feels unorganized. It feels like they're on their journey, and while they're on their journey, these other things are happening. And the same way in Naruto, the Hokage, yes, it's a definite position, but it's almost an intangible. You know,
Yeah.
like
But what I mean is like there's that X marks the spot kind of deal. Like,
yeah,
there's
yeah, yeah.
That's where we need to get to eventually. Now, how are we going to get there? I don't know. But at least as me as the viewer, I know that's where we have to get to at some point where this will end. And I won't have like this constant question going on like, oh, is this the end of the arc? Is this the end of the series? Like it makes me have like a finality to a show. And that's
I
what
get
I
that.
like.
I don't love goals for the sake of goals. You know,
That's what my
but
issue was afterwards with Bleach.
but when you have something like Naruto, where Naruto's goal became to retrieve Sasuke, and to get him to come back home and get strong enough to bring him back, and Sasuke's goal was to get strong enough to kill his brother, like those were side goals on the way to their larger goals. Like, or well, that was Sasuke's larger goal, but for Naruto, that's his side goal, where his main spot to end up is Hokage. And I really appreciate that they, like, I guess I don't want to
I
accent.
mean, I'm
Go
the
ahead.
way I know what you're trying to say, and it's that the goals work in tandem because when
Exactly.
Naruto, because I never understood why Naruto was so fed up on getting to get Sasuke until he said, how can I, how can I become Hokage if I can't bring him back? Which is almost it. Not that it makes too much sense, but it's almost like okay, so his to him it's in tandem.
Yeah.
It's like this will help me. Him retrieving Sasuke is gonna help him become
It's
Hokage. He's gonna
in
learn more about the world. He's gonna
yeah.
learn how to stop vengeance, stop the cycle of
I
hate and
I
stuff.
feel like specifically for Naruto, his goal of saving Sasuke was also like a mental thing, because like you know how he was like abandoned as a kid, right? By
Yeah,
like most of the village, and like his parents were
and
dead.
the third Hokage, yeah.
I mean, the third Hokage at least bought him food and paid his rent. But regardless, like he was abandoned by the whole village and he was alone. And for him to see his friend alone and going through the same things he was, because people were the same way they talk about Sasuke is the same way they talked about Naruto. You know, a 10-year-old kid. They were like, "Oh, he's a criminal. He'll destroy the village. He'll do this. He'll do that." Like they were talking about this man like he just killed 45 people and he deserves to serve 25 to life. Like, and he was like 10 to 12 years old. Like that's absurd. And in Naruto's mind, like he can't just abandon Sasuke when his boy needs him like that. Like so in my head, like his goal made sense to me. Like, oh, why won't you just leave Sasuke alone? Like that makes sense. I do like that his goal worked out with his larger goal. And then even after, we don't actually see him achieve his larger goal until the continuation series. We get an OVA of him becoming Hokage, but we find out he gets married before that. Like, like he doesn't become Hokage for many years.
Yeah. Which is nice when he finally gets it, because I was just like, hey, it took you long. You got a bad haircut now, but hey.
It's just short. It's literally his same hair.
I don't like
short.
it. I don't like the haircut.
Now, if
All
you
right,
want to talk
Max,
about
so-
a bad, you want to talk about a bad haircut, you got Gara. But
What they do to my man Gara.
All right, Max, do you have anything else you look for in a shonen plot?
Besides having good hair, no.
All right,
right.
go ahead, Devin.
oh, is it my turn? I thought it was yours.
Oh, okay. I mean, I could go. All right. So, I guess what I look for in the plot of a shonen is, I mean, there's just so much because What do I look for in the plot? Let's see. What are my favorite? My favorites are Death Note, Attack on Titan, and One Piece. So I feel like those all have very different plots.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
what do I look for in the plot? I guess it just needs to be well told. I think it just needs to be well told. I like very character-driven plots.
Okay.
I mean, Death Note's character-driven, but then like a show like One Piece would be story-driven. So I guess it just needs to be well told. Like, it needs to have. I would like them to have clear goals. So, Death Note would be, creating a peaceful world where he is the god. That's his clear goal. And I would like to see the steps taken to get to those goals be almost well written. Trying to tell a story outside of just a kid that becomes the Pirate King, a kid that becomes Hokage, a guy that becomes the god. What is the artist gonna try to tell me? Besides, or show me besides just, what's at face value, what does it mean to be the Pirate King? Well, for Luffy it means the person with the most freedom. What does it mean for Aaron when he wants freedom? It means destroying all his enemies. So it's just like it gives me something more to think about. What is freedom? What is, it's just, I love when a plot hits me with that type of stuff.
That's fair. So it really sounds like you're just looking for an engaging plot.
Yeah, you see, and then a character-driven plot that I would love is, Death Note, where it's just Light has to find a way to reach his goals, and by doing that, he's changing, he's learning things, well, I guess it's not actually changing because it's more like a egotistical type of change where it's almost because of the Death Note and because of the power he's changing, not because he's like learning.
Yeah.
But
I mean, he is learning because I feel like in Death Note specifically, there is a huge set, like for Light, there's a huge sense of confirmation bias because he is proving himself right, but he's doing it in the wrong way, and it's affirming his actions, which is why he's so
adamant about keep going. Yeah.
The man's over here. My goal in the shonen would be the end goal is everybody's dead. That's his end goal.
Well, I guess to wrap up my thoughts, I could just leave off with I guess what I look for in a shonen anime is I want the artist, or in the plot of a shonen anime, is I want the artist to give me more than just what's at face value. So what am I going to learn? What am I going to leave by watching Luffy become the Pirate King? What did I leave what did I learn from Naruto becoming Hokage, So like from Naruto learning Hokage, I learned the cycle of hatred. That's a real thing. Sometimes you just got to learn to let go.
Yeah.
And it's very simple. But at least I learned that over, Naruto became Hokage. At least I can say something more about what it means for Naruto to be Hokage.
Don't give up on your homies when they need you, even if they act like they don't need you. What I look for in the plot of a shonen is I don't want the main goal for anyone to become the strongest anything. That is so played out because think about some of the worst anime you've ever seen. Their goal is just to become the strongest. And it's always so vague. It's like, what is the strongest? And then they just quantify it.
It's so interesting you say that because while I don't look for that in a shonen anime, my two favorite seinen manga both have that same exact goal. Vagabond and, well, maybe not Vinland Saga, but Vinland Saga is kind of because he wants to be the strongest warrior.
But notice in those it's handled in a different way. There is a tangible
way.
Whereas what I find shonen, what happens in shonen
Wait, you said there's a tangible?
Yeah. It's called a body count.
Well,
no, it's not. It's actually in both those, it's the less body count you have.
No, in Vinland Saga, it eventually becomes less bodies. But at first, it's like, yo, how many bodies you got? Yo, how many bodies you got? I got 300. I got 400.
Because it's low key crazy. Because like, I guess I'll touch on those real quick. there's a person each of those people have in mind when they're thinking about the strongest.
Oh,
Whereas
true.
so that's what I mean by a tangible. Like it is
Oh,
like
okay.
in their idea of strength. Also, the one I don't mind is my hero. He doesn't say the strongest, but he says the number one. Um,
Yeah,
which
and that could be number one for different things than
yeah,
just being,
because
yeah.
no, because I guess it's important to note. All Might was the number one hero, right? Because of his charisma. But Endeavor has saved more people than All Might has in his whole career. Um, that is an important distinction. But but Endeavor was still the number two hero while All Might was active. So since Endeavor has the most saves and the most people rescued, you would think, oh, that's the number one hero. But his attitude and lack of charisma holds him back from being the number one. But that's just a little side tangent. So I don't mind it in My Hero because his goal is to become the number one hero, and he has a tangible. He wants to be like All Might. He has that goal, like the charisma, the power, the feeling of safety people get when they see him, versus something like Dragon Ball.
I can
Um,
tell.
I like the Saiyan saga. I like the Frieza saga, and I even like the Buu saga. Oh, and the Cell saga. Let me not forget that. Uh, those parts of the story were fine, but it became really apparent that they couldn't progress the plot without making it ridiculous when you got to GT, because they again
Not
remember.
canon.
I know it's not canon, but at one point it was. So the issue with that is they couldn't write someone stronger, so they had to bring Goku all the way back to the point where he was a kid. You know how absurd that is? Like that's a sign of bad power scaling. The last thing I'm looking for in plot and like plot details and things, I really do like unique power systems where it's not completely like one-sided. Like I can't tell who's just gonna straight up win. Like the dynamics of fighting in something like Bungo Stray Dogs, it's fantastic because they have people with these psychic abilities. The main character, also they're all named after famous writers in history. So like you have Lovecraft who summons like a Cthulhu monster out of his body, and like he's OP, like they can't kill him
I thought
because
he was the Cthulhu monster.
it's both exactly, and literally like they can't kill him because he's too strong, and so, but they find a way to defeat him. There's the main character has the ability called Beast Beneath Moonlight, where he turns into a tiger, and then he eventually learns to control it and turn into like a were tiger, like he's like half tiger, half man. The one dude has a jacket called the Rashomon, which is like so. All of these powers like interact with each other in such a way that's like so unique. Like Rashomon and the Beast Beneath Moonlight can even combine when they're fighting. But these two characters hate each other, but they end up having to team up all the time. Like, so I like when power isn't just straightforward. Similar to in Naruto, although Naruto is an offender of not doing this as
Of the
well.
power ceiling? Of the
Yeah,
power creeping?
because Team 10, Inoshika Cho plus Kakashi versus the Immortal Duo is one of the best fights in Naruto. You have Shikamaru using a water jutsu that he pulled out of a scroll for this reason, so that he would get Kakuzu to electrocute Hidan, or yeah, and that way he could take out one of Kakuzu's hearts or whatever. And I thought that was so creative. And then you had Kakuzu using wind and fire to like burn down the forest so that he could have the edge on terrain. And then you had Kakashi using like his vest as like a parachute thing so that that would get attacked. And like the whole fight is just so tactical. And then you have them trying to trap each other with shadows. Like Shikamaru throws like the bandana with the little kunai on it, and it gets them. I was like, oh, two claps. That was creative. I like that. I like creative fights. So, and again, this is why I like card game anime so much, because even though it's like these super situational cards that you wouldn't play in real life, like you have these characters who are using their brains and strategy and a way out. Like when Yugi is against the Golden Castle of Stromberg, and he has to get rid of half his deck every turn, and then he thins his deck so
That
it's
makes
only,
no. Oh, okay, wait. That does
and
make sense.
he
Or my fault.
thins his deck to only one card, so that the Golden Castle of Stromberg can no longer pay its cost because you can't pay half of one card. and the castle destroys itself, and then Yugi goes on to win that duel. So, like, the fact that, like, he uses his brain to do that, and also the combo, even though it's not a real combo he could do, against Slifer the Sky Dragon, where he decks his opponent out, like, those are super creative, and I really like those. And even the one against Weevil with Berserker Soul, where he's like, Monster Cardo! So, and so, essentially, like, what I'm getting at, what I'm looking for is creativity in shonen.
That's a great thing to look for, yeah.
And I think that that's not a lot to ask for, because if you're a writer/artist, you're already a creative individual. And I think the more you lean into tropes and things will lead to the overall suffering of your series/show. All right, guys, we've been Baka Burrito. I'm Devin.
I'm Diego.
And I'm Max.
Tune in next week for part 2, which will be the negative aspects of shonen anime. And Diego?
Yeah, make sure to leave a comment. Tell us what you look for in a great shonen, and leave a comment what your favorite shonen, what you like about them. Make sure to like and subscribe.
Have a good one. I like things that go boom.